Sales Chatter, and today we're going to talk, and I have a real hard time saying this without getting into an old NWA song, 100 Miles and Running, but every time I think of it, Joshua, I think of the 100 Miles and Running song. But today we're going to associate probably one of the longest runs I've ever heard of with Josh to sales, what that means to you, what that means to Overwhelm, and what that means by putting it all together and being the pro that you are.
Yeah.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly. And I think that's 2 days in a row for Lisa now, isn't it?
That is. Speaking of running, Lisa came running in.
Yes, she was like, damn, I'm getting this. And you know, it's the best 3 out of 5. So Lisa's got, like, tomorrow, Jeff, you're down 2-0, brother. You're like Stanley Cup finals, man, all on the line. You got to make it happen.
Oh,
he comes back from
he's throwing in the towel already. He said he's giving it up to Lisa this week. Lisa, hopefully you're joining us.
Yeah. Time to feed the wolf.
Yeah,
guys, here we go. And Joshua, sorry, brother. We should have said that we do kind of this one-liner and do a quick intro, and then we start the video. And sorry, y'all, we had a little technical difficulties before. We are streaming from an event today, so hopefully that event, y'all get it.
Event. Let us know if you guys are clicking the event or seeing this as you're joining the event, so we know, because this is new.
Yeah, so it is. And Lisa says, I literally ran down the hallway this morning. Well, you know, at least we're going to talk a lot about running this morning.
Yes.
To set the stage, Joshua is a professional sales rep. Joshua's a husband, a father, and he's training to run 100 miles to work. Now, brother, that to me is just like, I mean, I'm sure I've said it to you before. We've said it back and forth in our communication. But when I hear 100 miles, I actually like keel over like Homer Simpson when he ran half a block, and I started having heart palpitations, and I start thinking to myself, you know, we've had some pretty serious people on this show, and you know, a lot of them had said, you know, guys, we all have the same amount of time in the day, and it's about what's a priority for us that gets done. And I gotta ask, like, training to run 100 miles isn't just, you know, hey honey, I'm gonna go out for a 5-minute run. Right, like it's no. I understand that much of it. I'm not even gonna attempt to say.
I can't wait to hear what you've done to get ready for this or prepare for
and this is it. So if you can share with us, like, bring us into your world on professional sales, keeping your business going, keeping your family life together, and training for 100-mile run without losing your sanity. Or have you lost your sanity on a few occasions?
Well, and to before you go, Josh, to touch on what Dan said, guys, anybody who thinks they don't have enough time in the day, they've been sharing.
I think you're going to get a real eye opener.
You get to see this guy right here. He clearly has enough time in the day to do this stuff. So let's hear it, Josh.
Again, thank you so much, Dan, DJ, for having me on. I love your show, man. I really do. You guys have some really serious guests who really understand the transportation industry. I love when you have Dean Croker.
Dean Crook, the main man.
I love that guy. He's just got such an intimate understanding of the market. So you guys are doing a great thing. I'm honored to be on here speaking with you guys.
Thank you.
To answer your question, I'm going to rewind back to 2020 when I first got into running. You know,
whoa, hold on. So you're telling me, you're telling me you're only 2 years into actually starting to run?
Well, actually, it gets better than that.
Okay, go.
2020, I was up until 2020. I was a pack-a-day smoker for 8 years, from the time I was 21 until I was about 29. Me and my wife were expecting our 4th child. She is now pregnant with our 5th.
Geez, you're just like DJ. Do you guys not have TV? Like, do you guys just not buy cable or anything? Like, what's going on here?
He's in Michigan, Ohio. This is what we do, I guess.
I'm gonna get a little dark. I'm much better at.
Go for it.
I'm not sure if you heard that.
No, I didn't. No. Go. You said you were gonna get a little dark.
better at getting containers, pulling out containers. But so I was a smoker for 8 years up until 20. And I felt like shit all the time. I was running a multi-million-dollar book of business. I've been a million-dollar broker every year that I've been at the company I work at now. You can see me on LinkedIn. And so I was always busy, right? And I had this family, and I started thinking, like, hey, I want to live longer. I want to be healthier so that I can spend more time with my family and my kids. So I tried to get back into working out, and I'd always go like way too hard, and then I'd end up hating it and dreading it. So I decided I was going to start really small. I was going to like figure out, what does healthy look like as a daily habit? And for me, as a daily habit, that looked like, look, I don't have time from 8 to 5. I work from 8 to 5. I don't have time after 5 o'clock. That's time for my family, So for me, getting healthy while taking into account my sales career and my family was getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym. And let me tell you, I didn't start by getting up at 5 a.m. the next day and going to the gym, because I wasn't used to waking up at 5 a.m. So how could I expect myself to be like, flip a switch? That's it. Now I'm a guy who goes to the gym at 5 a.m. So I broke that goal down to even something even smaller and more manageable. Right. I'm just going to set my alarm for 5 a.m. so that way I get used to waking up at 5 a.m. So for like the first week or so, the alarm went off and I turned that shit right off. And I went back to sleep, because I was like, I'd always put so much pressure on myself, and I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself and scare myself out of, like, put myself in the state of paralysis, right? And like beat myself up too much. I was like, okay, I want this to be something that I enjoy and look forward to. So one day, like a week after I started this process, alarm goes off and I'm not tired. So I go to the gym. And I didn't start by running. I started by getting on the stationary bike, and yeah, easy. Listen to some music. I'm a big fan of Avril Lavigne. If you catch me running down the road, I don't wear headphones. I'm blasting like complicated and like angry white girl music. It's my jam.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Followed by Alanis Morissette and everything. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I'm a bit.
So I was really small. So it was like real small incremental changes. Within 2 months of that, I ran my first marathon distance. And I could barely walk after that. But once I did that, I was like, I was listening to guys like David Goggins and Cam Hanes and Zach Bitters, who had the record for the fastest 100-mile time ever, who I actually enlisted to be my coach for my next project after this 100, which is to set the fastest known time to run the shortest shore trail in Michigan. So from Lake Michigan to Lake Huron is 220 miles. So that'll be a project that I plan on doing early next year. But I got just watching these people do it, and I was just like, like, if they can do it, I can too. So I was like, that's it. I'm gonna run 100 miles. And the same things that led me to success in my sales career was like this obsessive, like, give 110% every day, no matter what. Like, I'm gonna show you how hard work is done. I applied to running. And it actually became kind of a destructive force in my life, because I was so like gung ho about that. It got to the point where I was kind of neglecting neglecting my career a little bit. In my day to day operations at TQL, wasn't the most present husband for my wife, who had just had our 4th child. So I took a step back. So in 2020, I went from a pack-a-day smoker to running marathons in the morning before work. I did 50 miles in June, and I did 70 miles in September of that year, 2 months after I broke my foot in July. And then I took a step back because it's, I have this mantra that I preach to myself every morning. It is like my duty to myself, my family, and society to be the best version of myself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, like, and in every area of my life, right? And that if you could break your life down into like 3 different categories, you've got your career, you've got your family life, and you've got your personal life, right? And I'd always struggled with like giving each area of my life like equal attention, right?
Mhm.
And make sure that one area of my life isn't, there's in the 7 Habits, Stephen Covey talks about
Great book.
how people can get work centered and then they neglect their family and personal lives, right? And that's not a fulfilling way to live life. And vice versa. People get too family centered and they neglect their own personal growth and their own careers. And then they start to become resentful of their families. And then the same thing with running for me was I was so obsessed with my own personal growth that I was neglecting my family life and damaging my career. And
Mhm.
I began to resent running. So I took a step back, right? So all of 2021, I didn't run hardly at all. I signed up for 1 marathon I did in October, and that was the last time I ran before I started doing uh, uh, training for this project. And 2021, I got into running because it was COVID had just hit, right? So uh, everybody's dead. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's moving anything. I work with mostly packaging, like middle of the supply chain shippers, so they're consistent. I'm on contracted freight. So like, I didn't have to do a whole lot of work in terms of like maintaining my book of business. It kind of is what it was, no, the spot market
So it
was
gave
dead.
you the freedom. Yeah.
We gave freedom to do it. Right. And then 2021 and towards the end of 2020, slammed. I had the busiest year that I'd ever had in 2020 towards the end of the year. 2021 was a record setter and we're on pace to triple what I did last year.
Nice.
Beginning of the year, this year, I kind of like took a look back. I was like, look, like I'm always gonna be busy. I'm never gonna have time, to like, I have to make that time. I have to choose like what, how we choose. It's not that we don't have time and that life is short. It's that we waste a lot of our time. So I have to choose like what's more important. Is it more important that I stay up till midnight watching movies that I've already seen before on Netflix? Or do I go to bed at 10 o'clock so that I can get up at 4 in the morning and train for this and run and take care of my body? Right. And then it became like, to tie this into my sales career, right? So the main thing that I've learned in terms of like growing, like once you kind of establish your book of business, you start running a team. It's like, before I was like such a micromanager, and I really kind of like I had this fucked up way of looking at my team, and like it didn't matter like not only did you have to get from A to Z, you had to get to A to Z the same way that I would do it, or it was wrong.
Is that one of the toughest things in life to do?
Oh, it's
Give
like
up your
your
book of
baby.
business.
Listen, your book of business is like your baby. I mean, it's your business, and so giving that over, it's like, are you going to take care of my baby as much as I did? And that's
or how I did it, or when I did it, or like customers can't wait 4 minutes. They got to be talking to them in 2. And it's like, and in the end, it all works out.
And
It always does.
And what made me realize like it made it easier for me to give that control is because like what I take into account, like one of my most important principles that I hold dear to my heart is service. Right. Now, if I'm micromanaging every area of my life, I am doing a disservice to my team members, to the people who work on my account on a daily basis, right? So the thing that really clicked for me this year, and helped me kind of like turn running and my sales career and my family life, and I guess it brought it to this synergistic point, right? Was to look at everything from the frame of mind of like, okay, how can I use this to enrich the lives of those around me, right? So the same thing with like myself, like with like change. So instead of looking at my assistants, which I hate that term, but they're my teammates, they're my partners, they're my family, right? I used to call them my assistants, and now I really hate using. I don't even like saying my account. It's our account. It's our baby together, and we
That's
work
right.
together on it. And I used to look at them for the utility. What can you do for me? Right. Instead, now I try to look at it like, hey, how can I grow them as people? How can I help them grow as
Yes, sir.
professionals? How can I empower them to make decisions? How can I enrich their lives for having to interact with me on a daily basis? And that's where, like, honestly, the like running really like helped me transition that frame of mind too, is where running used to kind of take away from my relationships with my family and my work. Right now I use it as a tool to enrich my relationships. So
When
before
you
I
say
would go,
use it as a tool, Joshua, do you mean um, because of its therapeutic attributes and because it allows you to think through things a little more and kind of clears your mind, where you can
well,
come at things with a better mindset or a more clear vision of what you see the future being?
well, that's more like introspective. I was kind of, and I
Mhm.
can get into that a little bit too, in terms of like what it is for me, like in terms of my own personal growth. Um, but to dive into like the, uh, like how I was able to get back into running and not have it take away from my relationship, because it really damaged my relationship with my wife in
Mhm.
20, which is
I
why I
hear you.
took it back from it. Now I do my I switch my schedule up. So I do my long runs in the mornings before work, because everybody's asleep. So like you can't get mad at me for running 30 miles before work. It's like I woke
Yes,
up at,
sir.
you know, like
Yeah.
yeah, or
I
with the
agree.
baby.
I agree. That's why I wake up early to do the same thing, dude. I get exactly what you're saying. And just to touch on your story, I mean, your story is amazing. It's crazy, but just to touch on some things that I think really, man, it's just breaking down the pools like you did into and paying attention to those categories. Did you read the Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey?
I have not. I'll have
You
to
got
get into
you got to read that
It's a
book.
great book.
he
Yeah.
he breaks that down, and he breaks down always checking in, checking into, he calls it, so the way he explains it is like a bank account. And so you got your bank account with your wife or your relationship, you got your bank account with your kids, you got your bank, and if you don't keep feeding those accounts and checking on those accounts, before you know it, they get a zero. And
well, yeah,
so just
and it
constantly
goes
checking in.
forest through the trees. It's like I used to get so obsessed with like the individual trees inside the forest, when every tree inside that forest that is my life should be receiving the same due diligence. Right. So I like have to be like constantly
Yeah.
looking at the bigger picture. So like one big transition that I made to like really fit my weekend training into my life was to like, if I want to go to lunch with my wife, so I'll take the babies in the double stroller. I'll run 26 miles to some little breakfast place in South Haven, which is 26 miles from where I live. And I'll make the wife breakfast. The babies get out of her hair. My wife gets some alone time. I get to run 26 miles, and then I get to spend time with my wife. And it's like just making those little tweaks in terms of what, like nothing that happens to us or that we do is like inherently good or bad. It's all about how we like choose to use it and how we
Yeah.
like fit it into our lives and those
Yes,
around us.
sir.
Like I constantly be thinking of others, and and that's what's so amazing for like running for me is like is like just one, I'm constantly doing like a moral inventory. I don't listen to music when I go for a run. Like I'm like listening to the birds sing, I'm watching the sunrise, and I'm thinking about my life. Like I'm thinking about the day I had yesterday, and you know whether it's interactions with my customers or a carrier or my wife or my son or my daughter. I'm thinking about every interaction that I had throughout that day. And I'm doing on like constantly doing this like moral inventory of myself where
Yes,
I,
sir.
okay, I did this, I like how that turned out. I'm going to keep doing more of that. Right. And, oh, I said this thing or I did this thing and that didn't turn out so well. And it kind of, took away from my day. So I'm going to make it a point to not do that anymore, you know? So like, there's the personal growth side of it, but like the most important thing to me is just like, how can I give back to society? Like, how can I enrich the lives of everybody that I come into contact with? Like that's, my dad always said, like, the purpose of the purpose of life is to leave a lasting positive impact on everybody you come into contact with. And I really try to take that to heart. And it's been an extremely humbling experience in terms of like just the feedback that I've received, like on LinkedIn from my own company, from across the platform, from all over the world. You know, I've connected with people living in Serbia and France and Croatia.
And it's awesome, isn't it?
Oh I met this guy, Bohan from Serbia. He works at Milsped Freight. And
yes.
He sent me a message like one day just out of the blue. And he's like, I just want you to know, like, you've inspired me to sign up for a half marathon. I can't wait to send you a picture of me from the finish line. And he sent me one the other day. And I like just the amount of joy that I feel in my heart from being able to, like, and it's like, I don't want to take credit for that because that was all him. He did that all on his own. But the fact that I could play just even some small role in like helping him grow and helping him reach for more, like, it's just, it's so hard to describe like the feeling that is, because like I don't think that I'm that great, and I don't think that I'm special, you know. Like I just like I got to where I am by like kind of like changing the way that I looked at my life and looked at my problems, you know. And it was just like a simple fix, and it totally changed like my life. And I just feel like it's my duty to share those things. Need the affirmation from anybody else, you know. It's more about like, hey, like I'm putting this out there because I feel like it's a duty of mine to spread a positive message and to show people that like having a good day is a choice that you make. A day to have a good day in spite of everything.
We only have two choices.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, it's like one of my favorites all time by Anne Frank. It says, I don't choose to think. I don't think of all the misery, but instead of the beauty that remains. You know, and to have that come from somebody who's literally experiencing life at its worst and humanity at its worst, to have that frame of mind, like there's always somebody who's done more with less. So that pretty much invalidates any excuse that you have for why you're not doing what you want to do with your life and why you're not where you want to be in life. And like, it's amazing how that like kind of transitions to your sales career.
Yes, sir.
When you have this, like, when you have like this genuine sense of self, like I find that like, look, I won't work with customers that I don't like. You know what I mean? That I can't, like, if I don't think you're a good person, like I've given counsel.
ICB.
I got no time for people that are going to take away from my life. Right. And when I'm like going into my, like when I'm going to try to set up a prospective client, or even with my current clients, like my frame of mind is constantly on that service aspect. How can I help them? Whether it's with their supply chain, how can I make their forget about all this stuff? How can I make their day better? How can I make them smile? How can I enrich their lives? Because, you know, particularly in the logistics industry, it can be so transactional, right?
Yeah.
And like, in order to have like those long-term relationships, one, you do have to have a sort of consultative approach, but a lot of truckload brokerage is very transactional just by the nature of the industry, how segmented it is. You know, when you're working with shippers that are moving 500,000 loads a year, nobody's got time to be your best friend, you know. But
you still have to be focused on the overall goal, or else you will not be doing business with the company very long.
Well, exactly. And the overall goal isn't get the most freight possible, right? The first, it's like, you know, I have young sales guys come up to me and ask me like, okay, like, what do you do? And it's like, look, I'm just a guy making phone calls, trying to make friends. Like when I call people up, like it's almost as if whether or not they have freight is like a secondary goal. First off, like, do I want to be friends with this person? Is this a person that I want to talk to like every day for the next 10 years? You know, so
kind of like picking a mate.
People like with people that they like, right?
Yeah.
And that's a two-way street, whether you're the vendor or the salesperson. Like, if you're a sales guy working with somebody that you don't like, you're not going to be happy. And sorry, you can't pay me enough to not be happy. Like, I know that I'm good at what I do, and I will die to, to like, my own man, when I first started here, my own broker, so when we start out at our company, you train under them for like 6 months, and like run their book of business as basically a trainee, and you book their loads and do check calls and blah, blah, blah. My old broker said to me that, said to my manager that he should just fire me and that there's no way I was going to make it in sales. Right. I didn't know that until after the fact.
Oh, jeez.
I've always been the person that's like, okay, I'm going to be the best it is at whatever it is that I'm doing right now. I'm going to give it 110%. They say don't leave it up to fate. Well, I'm going to leave it all up to fate, because I'm going to do everything I possibly can to succeed, so that the only reason it doesn't happen is because it's just not meant to be. Right. And that's, and that's been my approach to sales. Like, it's there's sales calls are so nuanced, and there's like a million different things. It's like a game of Bandersnatch, it's like you got options A, B, C, and D, and you say A and they hang up the phone. It's like, all right, don't say that again. Then you move on to options. Work that kept them on the phone. All right, time to move to options F, G, alphabet,
Yes, sir. We got some good comments too, Dan. If you
let's get through some of these, because we're already 26 minutes.
Yeah, we are 26 minutes in.
Jeff says, being an ex-runner. Of course, Jeff was an ex-runner. Geez, Jeff, what haven't you done, brother? Like, seriously.
I love it,
I'm very impressed with the running goal and meeting it. I've gave up running at 50, and at the time I was running sub 7 mile run. I was clocking 45 miles a week. Very good, brother. Very good.
To get back in.
Yeah. Lisa says, love that mantra. Hard to find that balance. And sometimes it is. Like, sometimes in life, it's very difficult to find that balance. It is.
Break your life into
and you know
seasons. Break your life into seasons and keep checking in.
But I agree that, DJ, but it's also, see, I think personally, where a lot of people start getting it wrong is they think it's a time thing. You will never, ever be able to divide your day up in equal amounts of time. Yeah. It's not time. It's what you do with that time. Yes. So even if you listen to Josh, he says, I wake up before everybody gets up, I run. That's Josh time. 8 to 5 is business. Goes to bed at 10. That's 5 hours of family time. 8 hours of business time, 4 hours of running time. That time is not divided equally. Business usually gets the bigger chunk of it. And especially, you guys both have young children. My wife and I typically go to bed before my 22-year-old. But your kids go to bed before that. So if your kids, sorry, Siri just kicked in. If your kids go to bed at that 8 o'clock, you now have a 3-hour window with the family. So it's not a time thing. Yeah. It's a being present. And Thursday, Brian Byro's on the show, and you want to talk about like the present.
Yes, the woo.
You guys will be blown away. Make sure you show up on Thursday. But it's that presence in the moment. Like, my wife and I will hang out and we do things we love to do. Josh, you and Brian would get along like two peas in a pod, man.
This is a touch on what you're saying too. Is like, I think a bigger problem that we get in like society is like, we're so focused on goals. And they'll hear me say this a lot because I really believe it. I think that what we think we're capable of, our goals, is probably only about 5% of what we're actually capable of. So it's like, I'm always saying, don't be goal oriented, be result oriented, and start thinking about, okay, how do I get results? Well, 1, effort drives results. And then 2, a love of the process drives results, right? Because like, when I'm focused on the process, right, and I'm less concerned about where I'm going, it's like, look, I never could have imagined myself at a career in logistics, but I love my life now, right? When I first started here, the base salary was like $35,000 a year, and that was the biggest number I'd ever heard. Like, I couldn't even imagine want to pay me that much money. It's crazy, right? So like, if I'm married to my goals, I'm going to constantly be selling myself short. So now it's like, when you're focused on the process, that's when you kind of get in the weeds, and you're both in the forest and you're in this ethereal state where you're seeing the bigger picture, but you're also paying, you're facing life with a diligence, where you're like thinking about you're really conscious and present in every individual interaction, right? In terms of like, okay, well, I'm really like hyper self-aware, like, okay, I didn't spend enough time with my wife here, I need to make up for that somewhere else, right? Or like, even just when it comes down to running, it's like the hardest part isn't the running, it's getting to bed at 10 o'clock. It's getting enough calories throughout the day to make sure that my body's got what it needs to keep fueling, right? It's, constantly, making sure, like preemptively loading up on like electrolyte gels and hydrating to make sure that my body's got what it takes, right? Because so when you're so focused on the process, like you're not really thinking about like the future. You're really like kind of grounded in that moment. And I've said this one too before. It's an old Indian proverb. Yesterday is but a vision. Yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is but a vision. But today, well lived, makes yesterday a dream of happiness, and tomorrow a vision of hope. So look well, therefore, to this day, right here, right now. It's like if I stay grounded in this moment, how my decisions are just better, right? Because I'm not like qualifying the decision that I'm making now based on things that I don't have control over, right? I'm really focused on this moment here right now and trying to make the best decision that is both best for me and best for the people around me. It's like finding that balance in life,
Yes, 100%.
Agree.
Brandon says, "You the man, Josh." Then Tony says, "Not sure how I got here, but thank you for this discussion." Tony, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Joining us, Tony.
Lisa says, "That's smart." Richard says, "Good Lord, how fast are you running?" Maggie says, "Okay, so you started 2 years ago, but took a year off. Few good months and 100 miles. Mind blowing, beyond inspiring."
Yes,
Scott says, "Genius." Lisa comes back and says, "Today's choices are tomorrow's consequences." Chad Petty.
Yeah.
Nice. That's actually really good one, Chad. And Scott says, yes. It's I know why you love the show, because everything you talk about is stuff we talk about every day, brother. We're so in tune. It's unreal. Like even just that review period, where you said you're running and you're reviewing. Okay, how was yesterday? And as I think, and please nobody lose their mind over this, but I think especially as a male, our ego, a lot of the times we have to check it when we look at things and say, you know what, yesterday I really didn't perform at my highest ability with my wife or with my kids. I wasn't present. My kids are talking and I'm like, oh yeah, because you got a work email or something, and I mean, I don't know. I can only speak as a man. It was very difficult in the first part of my marriage to put that away, and say, listen, Dan, no, you really acted like a dodo bird yesterday. Like you just weren't present. You didn't listen to your kids when, like you think about, especially with young kids, right? Like the grade 3, 4, 5, 2, 1 kindergarten, some amazing things happen during the day. And not being there for it. And, I think part of what I love about you, brother, is the fact that you do that review every morning and check in with yourself and say, like, was I really acting to my full potential yesterday? Where did I screw up? And a lot of people have a difficult time admitting to that. A lot of people, like a lot. And I love that. I love you for that, brother. You know what?
The self-awareness and acknowledgement, I think, is the biggest key of what you said. And once you really are aware of that, and then you start breaking yourself down like you did, and your vision of it, yeah, I agree.
And not even just the goals, like setting legacy points. Like you think of, and I think it's for everyone watching, everyone listening, everyone we've ever met, everyone that's ever touched us. Just before the show, I got word that a gentleman I knew when I was a really troubled teen, Charles, this guy lived in the ghetto, and all he did was he wanted to help kids not become criminals. That was his mission. He was a bus driver for the city of Montreal, and I just actually got word that he died last week, and he had some complications in the Philippines from pancreatic cancer, and he died. And I haven't spoken to Charles in probably 20 something years. Wow. But I'll tell you, the second I heard that, every lesson he taught me came back. And I realized literally 5 minutes before this show, he set me on the path I'm on today. So he created a legacy. And, DJ creates one every day. Joshua, you create one day. Everyone watching, listening, you create legacies every day. Like Josh, you said that, I didn't do anything, but I inspired this guy to run a half marathon. That guy is then going to pay it forward. And maybe his kids now see him going, oh my gosh, daddy was out of shape. Now he's running a marathon. And then that puts a health mentality and legacy point in the kids' place. And it's just, it compounds.
It's just that pay it forward mentality that it will just roll. It's just going to go. But
yeah. And thank you for that, brother.
And it's like in those 4 hours in the morning that I'm running on my long runs before work, like that's the time that I have for myself. And then I noticed that like the biggest leap made in terms of like my performance in life and sales and with my family and running is like always be thinking of others. Like I've got my 4 hours to think about myself and be selfish and work on myself and work on what I want to work on. The rest of the day, like I need to be thinking about how can I help other people? How can I'm going to plug my charity real quick. Plug it. 100 miles for on Tuesday. I'm running from my house. So if you ever met anybody from Michigan, we pointed our hands. I'm running from right here. This is where I live, right here, to here first because I had to run out of the way a little bit to make it 100 miles, and then to here, Grand Rapids, Michigan, for the Ronald McDonald House, West Michigan charities. They
good for you.
They provide service to families traveling to Grand Rapids to treat their children for severe illnesses like cancer, leukemia, and mental illnesses. So that's what this is all for, and that's honestly that's where I've seen the growth in terms of my performance too. Like sales, running, life in general is like it's like always thinking about like how can I help others, because that's when things like really start to turn and people want to open doors for people that help them. And it's not like it's not a selfish pursuit, right? It's like I have to be genuine in that pursuit and then in thinking of others and finding ways to help other people. Because like it's like, Bohan might say that I inspired him, but I'll tell you right now, he inspires me. He inspires me to know, like, one, to continue to want to do this, to continue this outreach and to try to spread this positive message and try to enrich people's lives, right? And it's like it just gives you back tenfold. It's like always be thinking of others, and then just if you're watching this from a sales perspective, like that's the approach that you have to take with every client, right? It's not about I can and look, anybody can post a load and cover it, right? Anybody can do that. That's not special, but how can you make their life easier? You know what I mean? How can you help them on a daily basis, not only logistically or in business, but how you help them as people, and that's how you build relationships that last 10, 20 years. And that's how you survive in this industry, is it with relationships that stand the test of time. Fair weather relationships 100%. Do not survive in 3PL brokerage. It just doesn't,
Well, DJ, that was a marathon out of its own that we just went on this morning, brother. And
awesome,
inspirational, and just Joshua, thank you so much for being here, brother. We really
and for your mission, man, and thank you for your kind words.
When you're done this mission, you got to come back.
Oh, absolutely, yes, I would come back.
Yeah, and then maybe I like to run too, so maybe we'll talk about making me doing something together, because I would love to do something with you. But yeah,
that would be awesome, man. Absolutely. Like I said, it's been a total honor to come on here and speak with you guys. I love your show. I love checking in. You guys are talking about the way you guys tie these principled and metaphorical approaches to life to also the real hard meat and potatoes data of logistics is sublime. It's how you survive in this industry, is have an intimate understanding of the physics of logistics, but also an intimate understanding of the ethereal personal relationships of the business that I really truly enjoy. So it's been a blessing to come on here and speak with you guys.
Wow. Oh, dude, we're honored to have you, brother. We really are. What a
great
I will tell
conversation. You, this is crazy. So Dan, I told you I had a quote before the show.
Yes, you did.
It's a Tom Bilyeu video. Actually, it even has impact theory on the bottom corner, if you see it right there. So but this was Stephen Covey. So it was crazy that you mentioned him. But again, before I give the quote, thank you, Josh. Guys, if can they donate to your cause, to your charity?
Yeah. I can drop a link probably.
We'll drop the link in the replays and stuff for you guys. So if you want
or
to,
even if you guys are watching on LinkedIn or whatever, connect with Josh and he'll give you the details as well. For sure. For sure.
Great idea. Yep. Just connect with Josh if you want to donate and help out. Josh, dude, this is huge. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for all the comments and joining us weekly like you do. Again, Sales Chatter Live, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Start your day right with us. Start it first at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock with a nice run. If you're like Josh over there, nice 30 mile, 40, 50 mile run. And then
it's only 30 miles before you go.
Then come watch the show.
No worries.
That's exhausting.
Peanuts. Like I'm sweating over here just thinking about it.
Thank you to American Logistics, Centurion Trucking for making this show possible. And again, Stephen Covey, here we are. You're not the product of your circumstance, but rather a product of your decisions.
Yep.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information